The 70s weren't just about the CBX and the Z1. Behind the headline bikes, there were machines so bold, so advanced, or so insane that most riders never even knew they existed. From rotaries to V6s and abandoned prototypes, here are 12 legendary 70s motorcycles you never knew about. Starting with the Suzuki RE5. This was a rotary engine in a street bike, and only Suzuki would have had the nerve to try that in the mid-70s. The RE5 was a moonshot on two wheels, basically a full-blown experiment that tried to skip a decade and land in the future. Under the tank sat a 497cc single-rotor Wankel engine, liquid-cooled, oil-injected, and breathing through a two-stage Mikuni carb. Factory numbers said about 62 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute and 55 pound-feet of torque at 3,500 revolutions per minute, and you could feel every bit of it. Testers at the time called it spooky smooth. From 60 to 100, it pulled like a turbine, no vibration, no fuss. Cycle World even joked that whether you shifted at 3,500 revolutions per minute or redline, it barely made a bike-length difference. That's how flat the torque curve was. Twin front discs, rear drum, and roughly 570 pounds wet. Then there was the look. Giorgetto Giugiaro designed it, and you can tell. The cylindrical gauges, the bullet-style taillight, the brushed metal curves. It looked like a concept bike that somehow escaped the studio. So why didn't it rule the roads? Timing. The rotary was smooth but hot running and thirsty, and by 75, lighter, sharper superbikes were stealing the spotlight. Yet even now, the RE5 stands as proof that Suzuki once built a bike so far ahead of its time, people still think it came from another planet. It was a real-world rotary that could cruise past 100 miles per hour and look good doing it. This next bike is a 70s gem that even many MV fans forget existed. Number 11. MV Agusta 350S Ipotesi. Now this bike was not designed by a motorcycle engineer, but by legendary car stylist Giorgetto Giugiaro. Known for shaping the DeLorean and the original VW Golf, Giugiaro brought his sharp architectural style to MV Agusta's 350S Ipotesi, turning an ordinary middleweight into a rolling sculpture. Every line looked deliberate. The crisp tank edges, the angular tail, the alloy wheels, and triple disc brakes that shouted modern in a decade of chrome curves. Beneath that futuristic bodywork sat a modest 349cc, four-stroke, parallel twin with pushrod valves. It made roughly 34 horsepower at 8,500 revolutions per minute, sending the lightweight frame to about 103 to 106 miles per hour in contemporary tests. That wasn't headline speed beside Kawasaki's Z1, but it was enough to make the Ipotesi feel alive. It was fast, light, and perfectly balanced for real-world riding. The hardware backed the looks. A Seriani fork handled the front, twin scarab discs did the stopping, a 5-speed gearbox kept the revs eager, and chain final drive sent the power home. The sport version even added a rear disc. At roughly 160 kilograms dry, it felt agile and deliberate. MV proudly called it the first Italian production motorcycle with 3 discs and cast alloy wheels, a claim supported by surviving examples. From the seat, the Ipotesi delivered charm instead of brute force. The twin spun smoothly, the chassis stayed composed, and the brakes inspired confidence few small bikes could match in 1975. Stylish, rare, and unmistakably Italian, the Ipotesi remains a hidden classic. Next up is the Egli Kawasaki. Imagine taking Kawasaki's Z1 engine, the 903cc4 that ruled the superbike scene, and dropping it into a Swiss-built racing chassis. That's the Egli Kawasaki, Japanese muscle fused with Swiss engineering. Fritz Egli, already famous for his Vincent-based specials, applied his trademark large-diameter backbone frame to the new generation of superbikes. The result was lighter, stiffer, and far more precise than any factory frame of the day. Egli's design was simple, but brilliant. A single central tube ran from the steering head to the swing arm pivot, braced by straight, triangulated members for strength. Each frame was built by hand, often fitted with Seriani or Koni suspension, twin front discs, and magnesium or alloy wheels. The transformation was dramatic. The Z1's 130 miles per hour punch came with real stability and steering accuracy instead of flex and wobble. These weren't showroom models. Riders ordered frames directly from Egli or licensed builders, then combined them with engines and parts of their choosing. Every finished bike was unique, but all shared the same character: quick steering, rigid handling, and a level of finish that bordered on obsessive craftsmanship. In 1978, Egli pushed the idea further with the MRD-1. Starting with a Kawasaki Z900 bottom end, he added an ATP turbocharger and revised internals. Power jumped from the Z1's 82 horsepower to between 153 and 180, depending on boost. Now, these were astonishing numbers for the time, and that's why the Egli Kawasaki stands out today. It wasn't a mass-produced motorcycle, it was a concept made real, blending brute power with race-bred control. Each one was effectively a custom-built missile for riders who wanted precision and speed in the same breath. Number 9. Benelli 254. This was a 2-50 with 4 cylinders, and only the Italians could dream that up. Benelli's 254, also sold as the Moto Guzzi 254, was the smallest production inline-4 of its time. It looked like a scale model of a superbike, designed by Paolo Martin with sleek lines and a unique set of instruments sunk directly into the fuel tank. It was stylish, quirky, and unmistakably Italian. The reason for its tiny displacement was pure Italian logic. In Italy, bikes under 250cc enjoyed tax breaks and cheaper insurance, so Benelli decided to play the system by building a jewel box engine that revved to the heavens. The numbers sound like they came from a watchmaker: 231cc, SOHC, air-cooled, about 27.8 horsepower at 10 to 500 revolutions per minute, and a 5-speed gearbox. Top speed hovered around 150 kilometers per hour, or roughly 93 miles per hour, which doesn't sound earth-shattering, but remember, this was a quarter-liter machine with 4 tiny pistons dancing to a red line in 5 figures. The chassis was as light and agile as the motor was eager. A single front disc and rear drum handled braking, and the narrow tires made it dart through traffic like a scooter with race bike manners. On the open road, it felt turbine smooth, happiest buzzing between 7,000 and 10,000 revolutions per minute. The tiny tank, squeezed by those built-in gauges, meant frequent fuel stops, one of the reasons it struggled in showrooms. Still, the 254 was pure Italian character. Enthusiasts today love its civility, its soundtrack, and the sheer novelty of a miniature 4 that feels like a grand tourer in toy form. It's the kind of clever, obscure engineering flex that defined the decade. Moving on, the Hercules W2000. This was a rotary engine in a sensible German commuter, and almost nobody outside hardcore bike nerd circles even knows it happened. The W2000, sold as a Hercules in Germany and as a DKW in some export markets, holds a quiet record. It was the first production motorcycle ever powered by a Wankel rotary engine. Long before Suzuki made headlines with the RE5, this little German machine had already done it. At its heart was a 294cc single-rotor unit from Sachs, air-cooled with a 6-speed gearbox, front disc brake, and upright ergonomics that felt more touring than experimental. Power sat between 27 and 32 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute, with around 24.5 pound-feet of torque, peaking at 4,500. Top speed hovered near 140 to 145 kilometers per hour, or about 90 miles per hour, which is steady, not spectacular, but what made it stand out was the feel. The rotary didn't throb or vibrate. It simply produced this seamless, turbine-like push that no piston bike could match. Early versions required pre-mixing oil into the fuel, which put off casual riders, but a later 1976 run added proper oil injection. Total production barely reached 1/800 units, and that's one reason you've probably never seen one outside a museum. Reviewers of the day praised its Seriani fork and general refinement, though they noted modest acceleration and limited cornering clearance when superbikes were suddenly everywhere. From the saddle, the W2000 felt like a glimpse into another future. It was linear power, minimal noise, and a mechanical whir from the axial fan instead of engine pulse. It weighed around 390 pounds wet, returned roughly 40 miles per gallon, and rode with the calm of a small BMW. And it 100% earns a place here because the W2000 quietly did what Suzuki later got famous for. It proved that a rotary motorcycle could exist, work, and cruise at real-world speeds. This next bike was pure 70s madness with a boost gauge. Up next is the Kawasaki Z1R TC. This was almost a factory turbo. You see, the Kawasaki Z1R TC wasn't born on a factory line. It was born out of frustration and a clever loophole. By the late 70s, Kawasaki's mighty Z1R was getting smoked by bigger, faster leader bikes, so they teamed up with American Turbopac, or ATP, to fight back. Brand new Z1Rs were pulled straight from Kawasaki's West Coast warehouse, shipped to ATP, fitted with a draw-through Rajay turbo and all the plumbing, then sent to dealers. There was one catch, though. The moment ATP touched the bike, Kawasaki's warranty vanished. You got an invoice, a boost gauge, and a warning label. Power numbers depended on boost and bravery. Stock Z1Rs made around 90 horsepower. The TC was roughly 130 at the crank. Some period tests claimed 10.9 second quarter miles at 130 miles per hour, while others logged around 11.4 seconds at 123. Either way, it was brutally fast for 1978, faster than most anything you could buy new. Top speed figures circled 135 miles per hour, but with a screwdriver and a little mechanical nerve, it could go far beyond that. Riding one was an event. Below 5,000 revolutions per minute, it felt tame, almost lazy. Then the turbo spooled, boost hit, and suddenly the front wheel wanted sky. The lag was dramatic, the hit even more so. Underneath, it was still a mostly stock Z1R. No stronger frame, no fancy suspension, just twin front discs and bias ply tires trying their best to hang on. Treat it with respect and it thrilled. Get cocky and it reminded you who was in charge. Now, the Z1R TC was the first dealer-delivered turbocharged motorcycle. It was street legal, terrifyingly quick, and faster than anything Kawasaki dared to warranty. It wasn't a factory special so much as a sanctioned experiment with a sales tag. Number 6. Rickman Interceptor. This bike was one of the coolest what-ifs of the 1970s. What if Royal Enfield's last great twin hadn't died with the factory? The Rickman brothers decided to find out. When Enfield folded, they bought up the remaining Series 2 Interceptor engines, 736cc of classic British muscle, and built a limited run of cafe racer missiles around them. The result was the Rickman Interceptor, a handcrafted blend of brute power and racing finesse. The chassis was the real showpiece. The Rickmans used their own nickel-plated duplex frame. It was light, rigid, and stunning in the sunlight. Add Seriani or Rickman forks, Barani alloy rims, and twin Lockheed discs, and you had a machine dripping with exotic parts rarely seen outside a race paddock. Production numbers were tiny, somewhere around 136 to 138 units, built between late 1970 and early 1972. Most were titled as 71s, and today they're more likely to be spotted on a concourse lawn than at a bike night. Power came from Enfield's air-cooled OHV parallel twin, roughly 60 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute, fed by twin Amal carbs through a 4-speed gearbox. That setup pushed the Rickman to around 115 miles per hour, with a relaxed 90 miles per hour cruise that felt almost civilized. Period testers raved about its composure. It had firm suspension, stable geometry, and braking power that made most other British roadsters feel prehistoric. But the magic was more in the formula than in the speed. This was a boutique special you could actually buy. Enfield Grunt in a Rickman frame, wrapped in shapely fiberglass bodywork and polished nickel. It even scored a quiet first, as one of the earliest street bikes to feature disc brakes at both ends, straight from the builder. Fast, rare, and meticulously built, the Rickman Interceptor captured everything the 70s promised: craftsmanship, speed, and a touch of rebellion. Next, we have the formula that built Bimota's future, the Bimota SB2. Before Bimota became shorthand for Italian exotica, there was this, the bike that started the legend. The SB2 was Massimo Tamburini's first full expression of what a motorcycle could be when design, handling, and engineering all shared equal weight. At its core was Suzuki's GS750 engine, but everything around it was pure Tamburini brilliance. A hand-built chrome moly frame with trellis sections, alloy side plates, and those beautiful conical joints that looked as if they belonged in an art museum. The concept was simple but revolutionary. The engine acted as a stressed member. The frame was lighter and stiffer than the Suzuki Cradle, and servicing was easier. Panels bolted off, and the entire bike sat lower, tighter, and cleaner than the donor GS. Power came from Suzuki's 743cc DOHC4, tuned to about 75 horsepower at 8,700 revolutions per minute. Dry weight sat near 196 kilograms, and the parts list read like a wish book for racers. 35mm Seriani fork, Corte and Coso monoshock, and Brembo discs spinning on Campagnolo magnesium wheels. Tamburini even experimented with moving the fuel tank under the seat and running high-exit exhausts, but heat and practicality trimmed those touches before production. The geometry remained. A wheelbase just 54.7 inches long, which was more than 4 inches shorter than the stock GS750, and a lowered riding position that made it feel like a full-blown racer with mirrors. Top speed claims hovered around 150 miles per hour, though real-world tests sat in the mid-130s. What mattered was how utterly composed it felt doing it. Only about 140 SB2s were built, many as kits, and everyone was a statement. Japanese reliability meeting Italian chassis genius. Another Bimota on the list is the Bimota HB1. This was the very first Bimota, built around Honda's CB750 engine, but wearing a radical Italian frame from a young Massimo Tamburini. The story starts with a crash. Tamburini wrecked his own CB750 at Misano in 1972, then decided the Honda's chassis wasn't good enough for the engine it carried. His solution was pure engineering brilliance, a big backbone, chrome moly frame that was lighter, stiffer, and sharper. It worked so well that he decided to sell it as a kit. The result was the Bimota HB1, one complete bike and 9 kits built for a Swiss importer, just 10 units total. Each kit included the frame, swing arm, wheels, suspension, brakes, and bodywork. Basically, everything but the engine. It was the birth of the Bimota formula, Japanese horsepower inside an Italian race chassis. Power came from Honda's proven 736cc SOHC4, making around 68 to 69 horsepower through a 5-speed gearbox. Components were the best you could buy at the time. Seriani fork, Marzocchi twin shocks, twin Brembo, or Lockheed discs up front, and cast wheels. The bike was lighter and far more rigid than the stock CB750, and the difference showed immediately. Top speed cleared 200 kilometers per hour, or about 124 miles per hour, with some builds touching the low 130s depending on tuning and gearing. But the real magic was in how it felt. The HB1 stayed composed at speeds that made the stock Honda nervous. The short wheelbase and stiff spine frame delivered razor feedback and race bike confidence, all while keeping Honda reliability. Number 3 is a prototype, the Yamaha GL750. If this series is about legends you never knew, Yamaha's GL750 is more of a ghost, a showstopper that hinted at a future we never got. Unveiled at the Tokyo Motor Show in October 1971, the GL looked ready to rewrite the superbike rulebook. Beneath its sleek, almost production-ready bodywork sat a liquid-cooled 2-stroke inline-4, around 743 to 747 cc, fed by reed valve induction and something wild for the time. A diaphragm pump fuel injection system that used crankcase pressure pulses. Cycle World's 1972 preview couldn't hide the excitement. They called it jammed with performance, noting those twin front discs, the first ever shown on a mass-market motorcycle, and the intricate injection setup. On paper, it promised open-class speed with 2-stroke response and the refinement of liquid cooling. Think Kawasaki H2 power, but with less chaos and more civility. And then nothing. The GL reappeared briefly in show trim and quietly vanished. Yamaha shelved the project as emissions and noise regulations closed in, choosing instead to pivot toward large 4-strokes. No production, no press launch, just a handful of photos and endless what-if conversations among collectors and historians. But the story didn't end there. Within a few years, Yamaha's race department unleashed the TZ700 and TZ750, liquid-cooled 2-stroke 4s that went on to dominate Formula 750. Officially, those engines were developed from the TZ350 twin design, but enthusiasts have always seen a family resemblance to the GL's show motor. That's what makes the GL750 so haunting. It was real, complete, and nearly ready. Reed valve induction, twin discs, injection, water cooling, all before those ideas hit the showroom. The only thing that stopped it was regulation, not imagination. Moving on is the Van Veen OCR 1000. You might have to file this under "How did I not know about that?" A Dutch-built rotary-powered superbike with shaft drive, Brembo triples, and a price tag that could make a dealer sweat. The Van Veen OCR 1000 was built around a 996cc twin-rotor Komotor Wankel engine, the same unit developed by NSU and Citroën, mounted in a long, low chassis with a 4-speed shaft-drive gearbox. Period notes even credit Porsche engineers with helping on the transmission. Output was roughly 100 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute, and top speed claims landed near 135 miles per hour. In the late 70s, that made it one of the smoothest and most sophisticated motorcycles money could buy, and it did take a lot of money. The OCR was billed as the world's most expensive production motorcycle, with a sticker north of $15,000 when a CBX or Z1R cost a fraction of that. Spec-wise, it was a showcase. The 1974 prototype already featured triple Brembo discs and cast wheels, and production bikes kept that theme of big brakes and big presence. The flip side was weight, somewhere between 290 and 320 kilograms ready to ride. This was no sprinter. It was a turbine-smooth express. Testers said it surged forward on a wave of torque, rock steady from 70 to 110 miles per hour, and eerily free of vibration. So why didn't it change everything? Timing and cost. Komotor collapsed just as the project came alive, leaving Van Veen without engines and buyers without budgets. Only around 38 bikes were ever completed before production ended. Decades later, a small Dutch team built 10 more from leftover factory parts, selling them for around $115,000 each. Finally, the Laverda 1000 V6. If this series is about secret 70s icons, here's the unicorn. A liquid-cooled 96cc, 90-degree DOHC V6 endurance racer, 4 valves per cylinder, 6 carbs, shaft drive, designed with former Maserati engineer Giulio Alfieri. Laverda didn't build it as a concept or a one-off display piece. They built it to race. The V6 debuted at the Bull d'Or in 1978, and the numbers it produced were almost unbelievable for the time. Factory output was quoted around 140 horsepower at roughly 11,000 revolutions per minute. At Paul Ricard, the V6 was clocked at about 283 to 285 kilometers per hour. That's 175 to 177 miles per hour, down the Mistral Straight. It was 20 miles an hour faster than anything else in the field. Then, just as quickly as it arrived, it broke its drivetrain and vanished. The myth was born overnight. The engineering still sounds futuristic decades later. Tubular steel frame using the engine as a stressed member, twin front discs with a single rear, 5-speed gearbox, and shaft final drive. Wheelbase measured about 1,500 millimeters, and the whole layout was balanced, compact, and eerily smooth. Journalists at the time called it a laboratory on wheels, and they weren't exaggerating. It was car-grade engineering built to run 24-hour races. So why didn't it change everything? Rules and reality. Endurance regulations soon capped entries at 4 cylinders, effectively banning the bike before it ever got a second chance. And there was the cost. Laverda was a small factory. They built 1 race machine and later assembled a second from spare parts. What other bikes deserve a shout-out on this list? Let's know what you think down below. And if you enjoyed the ride, like the video and subscribe to the channel.